Welcome to another episode of our Discourse. It's been a while, and now I am extremely privileged and honored to have the amazing artist here, Walter Peter Brenner, who is primarily a sculptor, but also a painter. And did I miss? Is there other art mediums you deal in, Walter?
Also an architect, Jonathan.
Oh,
Thank you
right,
very
right.
much.
Wow, wow. What a great privilege it is to have you here in our discourse. So you are all the way from Guatemala, speaking to me, which is very interesting. I've never been to Latin America. The closest I've been is Mexico, and I always offend people if I say Mexico is Latin America, which is obviously not. And I'm from Israel. Actually, these are very interesting times to be in Israel, but we won't go into that. So we will go today. We will talk to you a little bit about your journey becoming the successful artist that you are, and the philosophy, getting to some of the ideas behind your amazing artwork. So why don't we start by asking you, uh, why sculpture? Why art? Perhaps more boldly, why create?
Well, first of all, Jonathan, it's really a pleasure and an honor that you have invited me for this interview. I admire and love your articles. You are a very intelligent young individual, so I feel
Thank you.
honored. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much
much.
for the invitation. Yeah. So, well, why sculpture? I would say that it took me pretty long. I am 59 years old, and I started living in an artistic atmosphere since I was very young, because my father was a very well-known painter here in Guatemala. And I would say I was lucky that he was a realist. He wasn't, he always put in doubt all these abstract ideas. And he was a very good and wonderful dad. And he taught me, I think that's one of the most important parts of my youth, philosophically talking. He taught me that there was only one truth
Hmm.
in life, So either things were one way or no way. So I have that to thank him.
I
I
wish
mean,
more fathers would have taught their children that, because it seems rarer and rarer nowadays.
exactly. Exactly, and that was, I think, the foundation that afterwards I would go pretty easy into following Aristotle's law of identity. That is A and A, and the rest is history. Ayn Rand, and Objectivism, and that helped me so much in the development of my morality and my career too. So coming back to how did I come to sculpture, I mean, to make it very, very short, I grew up a little bit under the shadow of my father's fame, and then I decided at 18 to study architecture. I am also an architect, and I wasn't too convinced. I already was selling my work in painting, because at 17 I considered myself already a professional painter. My father taught me how to draw and how to paint,
Wow.
especially in watercolor. So, but I wasn't that happy, Jonathan. I wasn't that happy. And then I decided, after I had studied 3 years of architecture, here in the best university, maybe one of the best in Latin America, the UFM, Universidad Francisco Marroquín. Why I am naming very strongly the name of the university? Because it's a liberal, classical liberal university that teaches how and why to defend freedom. So that was the best decision I could do, to study architecture there. I had then the influence of a political liberal view defending freedom. And in that university was where I was introduced to Ayn Rand and Objectivism, by the way. But to make it shorter, I don't want to I don't want to take so long in this. Then I decided to go to Switzerland. I am also a Swiss citizen. I have the Swiss nationality. My grandfather was Swiss. So there I study drawing, anatomy at the School of Fine Arts in Zurich in the evenings. And
that's where your German is from Switzerland?
No, I was raised in the German school, my primary and secondary school. I was in a German school. And afterwards, I traveled to the German part of Switzerland, and then I perfectioned my language, my German language, and there was where I got in love with sculpture, with the sculpture medium, and there I also had the opportunity to read Atlas Shrugged. So I was highly motivated. I had found my vocation, and I think I have made introspection and why sculpting, why sculpture, and it has to do, I think, with a metaphysical reason that painting, you can have so wonderful paintings, masterpieces. It's a marvelous medium. It's beautiful. It's so motivating. It's so relaxing to paint, the colors. But sculpting, you can reach more real of real. I don't know how to say it exactly. It's not my mother language, but you have the 3D. So and the perspective in painting becomes real and actual in the sculpture. You don't have a perspective anymore. Of course, if you do a high relief, there you have to study and introduce it. And a high relief or a relief is half painting, half sculpture. But in a free sculpture, totally 3D, you have more realism, more reality than reality. Actually, for Plato, sculpture was his best medium, because in his view you could fake reality, or you could fake your appearances more than actually no, it was music his best medium. And
because music is like mathematical or something like that.
Yes, because music is mathematical and is in a way more abstract than the visual arts. Of course.
So I would assume sculpture is most hated art form.
Most hated. Yes.
Yes.
I was committing there a mistake. For
Most
Plato,
hated.
sculpture was most hated. Yeah.
Because it's literally faking reality, right? This is like
Exactly. Didn't help him to prove his world of appearances, and cancel the faculty of your senses.
Which is interesting because the Greeks loved sculpture. They brought us the amazing sculptures. Like there's this. I remember seeing I don't know if you've seen this actually, Walter, but there's like, I think like 3 or 4 sculptures from ancient Greece that are verified to have been from ancient Greece that are survived, and I've seen a picture of 2 of them that are in Italy, in the south, that are basically were left intact completely with their head, and my God, what is that? That's like incredible, and they reminded me a lot of your sculpture in a sense of a strong man who's capable, who's well, there I saw more a focus on strength rather than intellectual power as well. I would say, but there's definitely something that I think really influences great sculptures, such as your sculpture. I would assume.
No, I think what you're saying is perfectly correct, and I identify with with the main value of what you are trying to say, and you said it in a very good way. At last, they also had what Ayn Rand calls the heroic view of life, the heroic view of man. Then, actually, that was what she so admired from the Greeks, especially from Aristotle. Explained in a philosophical way, but this heroic view of life, the first ones were the Greek, and the Greeks had actually 3 different phases: the pre-classic, the high classic, and the Hellenistic.
Right.
And the sculptures I assume that you are talking about are from the Hellenistic phase, like the Victory of Samothracia.
Yes.
And also the Laocoonte, the famous Laocoonte, is so great. This guy that is fighting with the serpents
Yes.
that are killing the kids, and no, it's they are so great. But especially this third phase of the Greeks, the Hellenistic period, produced so wonderful masterpieces that are actually afterwards the motivation and the inspiration for the first Renaissance, with all these wonderful artists we so famously know.
Would you say? So I know you spent many years in Europe. So would you? I'm sure you have been exposed to the greatest sculpture that Europe has to offer. Arguably, I would say the continent that has the most beautiful sculptures to offer. Would you say any particular sculptors or pieces of sculptures that defined your style, your unique style?
Well, of course, I have there so many role models, but we don't have here the time and the space, so I will try to be very brief and mention maybe 3 or 4 masterpieces. I think without having or competing, the best of the best for me is Michelangelo, with David's sculpture. It's so perfect, and his Pietà and his Moses. For me, his Moses is my favorite. You were talking about strength. You were talking about strength of character. You are standing before the Moses, and when he's sitting, and he's a little bit taller than you, so you are looking at his eyes just a little bit higher. You think this giant that is real is going to stand up, and he's going to lead you to greatness, and he was able to inspire you and to project that marvelous sense of life. And well, there is this Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux. He's a French of the Romanticism. In the Met, there is this wonderful copy of the Hugolin. That's a perfect masterpiece. It's a little bit dramatic. of course, and I think one of my best and more cherished pieces of art is of Antonio Canova, the Italian romantic, and he did a sculpture that is in Rome, in the modern art, by the way, that is called Hercules and Lycas. He's throwing Lycas, from the back, and it's just, I was standing last year in front of it, and I was just crying of
Wow. These are beautiful examples, and I've spent you've read some of my articles. I've spent a lot of time thinking about art, but particularly thinking about painting. I have not, if you would go back to scan all of my essays, you would not find me say anything at all almost about sculpture. And there's a reason for that. And it also is why it's particularly interesting to have you here. It's just I never got into sculpture as much as I got into other forms of art, and it's hard for me to say exactly why. But I think about David, for example, which was I haven't seen it in Florence. I've seen a perfect almost copy of it in London in the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is the same size, and I think it conveys. It's not like the original, of course, but it conveys some of the experience, and that really hit me. I also had a very strong moment there, and I also almost cried. Didn't cry, but almost cried from that. So I can see that. But most of the time, when I go to museums and I see sculptures, the way they are presented possibly also has to do with it. I'm sure maybe you have something to say about that. Is kind of underwhelming. I see them, and I'm I go around, and I'm okay, I've seen it, and then I move on, and never really get a deep connection. Sometimes it does happen, but not as often as with painting. Does it make sense to you, what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense, Jonathan. And let me tell you something. I mean, if you compare the production of sculpture in comparison with painting, I mean, in the art history, in the history of art, it's only 10% of what has been produced in painting. So you are, of course, more used to and accustomed when you go to museums, and I mean in private and in public buildings, there is always a lot more painting than sculpting. And I think painting has this characteristic with color that stimulates more, and doing and producing and creating a masterpiece in painting is, for me, a lot more difficult than producing a masterpiece sculpture. Yes, I mean, Michelangelo used to have that idea. To do a masterpiece in painting is a lot more difficult because of perspective, that actually the actual proportions between the first stage and the second stage and the third stage, they had a concordance with the reality, with the phenomenon of view, So yes, I think it's logic. And then if you analyze it also by the excellence perspective of the quantity of masterpieces in one medium and in the other, there are a lot of beautiful pieces. But like you say, you just pass by, okay, it's technically very well done, executed, but that it moves you, that it really, the posture, the attitude, the sense of life that you identify with it. It's very difficult in painting too. It's very difficult, but you have a lot more offer in painting than in sculpture.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so it's a combination, you're saying, of fewer great artists who do great sculptures, and
Yes.
the painting also has more to offer in terms of others, multiple figures, for example, or different colors, different subjects, and there's a more variance, I guess, also in genre and things like that. That is more,
Yes.
yeah, I see.
And don't forget that producing sculpture is a lot more expensive than producing painting, you
Right,
know?
right.
So the investment of the Patreon, it's higher. So only the richest patrons could afford to hire the best sculptors. Yeah.
So perhaps you have a word of advice to a person who's, let's say, going to a museum, and is having a bit of a difficulty engaging with sculpture on a deeper level. What would you have as an advice for him to maximize the experience?
Well, now we live in wonderful times when you have the great opportunity to have the web, the social media, and Google, you know. So, of course, if you plan in accordance to your best wishes, and then you can Google and go into the museum if you are going to that precise city, and of course the best would be to get to a friend that is very knowledgeable in that precise medium, and ask, look, please let me know what are the best pieces and why, and this is my best likes, and I need to prepare yourself to study to uh, that's why the first thing I would say, I have an art school, and of course that's my specialty. A lot of people are asking me, look, what do I go to see to the Met? What do I go to see to the Louvre? What do I go to see? And it depends on the interest and the curiosity of the individual. But the first thing I would tell him is, look, please read this book as fast as possible, then come back to the Romantic Manifesto, and then I can tell you what's the best, what's the worst. And it's very delicate because you know a lot of people that have vocation for modern art, and so it's not that easy. But
Yeah.
but now you have the resources, you know, if you are curious.
No excuses. You're saying you have to
No
do your,
excuse. No
yeah.
excuse. I have organized for a lot of friends and my kids. I have three kids. Their tours, you know, from museum to museum in Rome, and to go and see this piece and this other and this other, you know. So the best is to ask knowledgeable friends, art historians. Please let me know what's the most beautiful piece, the best piece,
And I like more broadly, I would say, the idea of going to a museum in a more prepared way. Um, go because people go to museums sometimes just with the idea, I'll just go there and I'll see everything, and it just, you never actually get to engage deeply with any of the works because you're in a mindset of, I have this amount of time, the museum is this big, I have to go everywhere to see. What they do is they take their phone, they take a picture of each work, and then they move on, and you don't actually engage with the art that way.
exactly,
And
exactly, exactly, Jonathan. For instance, I have gone to the Met like 4 or 5 times in New York, and I have like a religious principle. Go and don't spend more than 3 hours in the museum, and go very focused in looking for something in particular. I think it's beautiful, Jonathan, not to lose spontaneity, to get yourself marveled with it. But that you can do in very small museums, small places, or once in a while you do it in some of these huge and museums. But I mean, the longer you stay, the faster you lose concentration and focus.
I 100% agree. And I would say if you go and you have covered the ground you wanted to cover, then by all means, if you have the time, scan around and find little things that will surprise you. I'm always when I go to a good museum, I'm surprised by a particular piece that I didn't expect to like, but when I actually see it, and that's one of my favorite things to do also in a museum. So definitely also have time for that, but you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. I want to ask you, Walter. So going back to your personal career as a sculptor, did you decide, or like, how did you decide, or when in your life, that you're going to do it as a career, as something you are committed to, as a full-time job, and not as a hobby, but you're actually going to be an artist and you're going to live off your sculpture? I'm not talking about the architecture, which is more obvious.
Okay.
Well, that's a beautiful question. And I remember the place and the moment when I took that decision, because in my case, it was very difficult to choose my vocation. It only was, So I had already studied architecture, painting. I was an air pilot, a civil pilot.
Really?
So I was living in Switzerland and I had to take a decision. I was 26 years old. I had already done 2 exhibitions in Switzerland, painting exhibitions.
Wow.
And then I had to say, okay, I am 26 years old. What I'm going to do of my life? Architecture. And then I just said, look, I made a try in a sculpture course in the Middle Alps in Switzerland, and it was such a crush, Jonathan. And I had already this morality influence of pursuing happiness and doing what you are going to do in life, your work, as the most important activity that you must really enjoy in a profound happiness, and that was sculpture. And then I had to decide between being an air pilot or an architect or a sculptor or a painter, and I was 26 years old in Switzerland. I took the decision, and it made me so extremely, overwhelmingly happy. And that's the only way I think I have been able to overcome all the next obstacles I would have in my next 30-something years until today.
So you're saying, what you're saying is the fact that you got this clarity, which correct me if I'm wrong, the clarity arrived from knowing the deep, the profound joy out of bringing to life this metaphysical object that you just loved so much. So the decision came from the joy of from the conviction that this is something that you like the most to do, more than anything else you've tried. So you've tried being an airline pilot, you've tried painting, you've tried architecture, and then you made like an executive decision: I'm going to be a sculptor. End of story. And
End of the story.
And then you just
And
proceeded.
and I will integrate all what I have already learned that would help me to be a better sculptor. I mean, just like in the Renaissance and in the Roman times, that you were a painter, you were a sculptor, and you were an architect. You were the three of them, but of course you made a living of your stronger competence. Yeah. Yes, just as you put it perfectly.
That's beautiful. So when I'm 23 and I'm so worried about not sure about what I'm
You
going.
don't have to worry. Please don't worry. It's more important now that you explore, that you study philosophy, that you are so well prepared in that branch is the most important branch of the human sciences, humanities that will help you out to take your best and your better decisions. Philosophy. That was my solution at last.
That's, I think, it's a very beautiful piece of advice that applies to everybody. That's beautiful. So you took that decision when you were 26. I'm sure it took quite a while until you managed to be a successful sculptor. Or
Well, to be a successful sculptor, it took a good amount of work and time. Yes, pretty long. But to be already a pretty good sculptor, it was more or less easy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I worked 10, 12 hours daily, and I did only that plus teaching drawing, painting, and sculpting, and teaching a creative process in the arts. I also have a master degree in philosophy that I learned here at Francisco Marroquin University. And then all these competences that I already had, I could integrate very, very fast, because the basis of being a good sculptor is to draw, to be able to, to proportion and integrate. And I had already the right training in composition, what is very important to reach and to acquire beauty in composite image. So I was already very well prepared. I just had to put it in practice. And in a very short time, I think I sent you the picture of my Prometheus 3, that is 2 meters 30 high. And that's the most important sculpture I did. I was 28 years old when I did it in 1995. No, 30 years old. Can you imagine? 30 years old, because I did it in 95. I was born in 65, so 30 years old. And that's my masterpiece with a lot of mistakes. I can see the mistakes today that I don't like, but that's the one I loved the most. It was my biggest monument at the moment. I was heroifying, idealizing reason, since Prometheus is the Greek god of reason, actually, of creation. And that was at that time my masterpiece, personally, emotionally. And I designed very thoughtfully, Jonathan, my marketing strategy. That was very, very important. Yeah. I also studied marketing, sales, image, creation, all the branches that come in marketing. and I had a very good plan that worked out through the years, you know.
That's vital, and I'm very glad you mentioned that. So many artists neglect that, and sometimes that's the difference between a successful artist. I mean, successful in terms of successfully financially artist, than a failed one. He doesn't put it like you could have the most incredible sculptures in the world, but if nobody sees them, then you can't live off it. You know, you have to also think like a businessman, and that's very important. Why don't we see some of your magnificent sculptures? Let's start by the one you just mentioned.
It's one of my first monuments. Can you imagine? It's already 30 years old.
Wow.
And you cannot tell, but can you imagine? It's done. I did it in polished cement. It's concrete.
Wow.
It's polished cement, because what I did.
Concrete. Wow, that's
Concrete.
unusual.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
polished cement.
Wow.
Only the chains are done in resin, but everything else, it's concrete. It's cement.
Why is it concrete and not like bronze, for example?
Because that was part of my marketing plan. It was a low budget project where I wanted to prove my abilities, and then I convinced my patron that he didn't have the opportunity to invest much money in this piece, because he was investing. This is the family beach house at our Pacific Ocean. So the place was perfect, because behind that board aisle, you have already the water. I mean, and the sound, of the waves hitting the sand, and then the stage, the theatrical stage was perfect. And this is a friend that studied architecture with me, and so his budget wasn't that big, And he wanted a piece, and he was prepared to make the least investment possible. And I took the advantage after this sculpture, this monument, to be able to take it to the news, to take it to be published in different magazines, and and that was great. This was my first important piece after I have come back from Switzerland and started my professional career in 1993. And then I was doing.
This sculpture is from 1993. You're saying this one?
No, I came back from Switzerland in '93, and I was doing it in 1995.
1995. So this is your Prometheus.
Yes, 2 years
from 1995.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I can already see it's interesting because you read Rand very young, right? You were first exposed to
not that young. I was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, so I was 17, I would say.
Okay.
So roughly the same time as I, and you already you had this hero worship style already, like you fully were on board with that, or did it come from somewhere else? This idea of showing man as powerful, as capable, as heroic. Would you say that comes from Rand, or comes from? Yeah.
I give the total credit to Ayn Rand's novels, and to be sincere, the novel I always liked the most was We the Living. That was the one that influenced me so much, and I really got into objectivist philosophy first, the virtue of selfishness was the first.
That's what you study at the university, right?
At the university, yes. Well, and already in private, because this great professor I had, that is an objectivist architect, Warren Orbo. He's very well known here in Guatemala at the university, and he's also known at ARI and other spheres. He's extremely intelligent and bright. He gave me like 20, 30 different courses, and he was the one that introduced me to Objectivism. And this hero worship sense of life, I got it from Objectivism, you know. But I started that conversion in painting first, you know. I went from drawing and painting very architectural themes like doors and streets and windows, and I started in painting to make the metamorphosis to human figure and to a heroic view of life in painting before getting into sculpting. Yeah.
Wow. So this is Sophie. Yes. Tell us about Sophie.
And we're looking at these memorials, these monuments, these sculptures in a chronological order, Jonathan, because Prometheus was 95, and Sophie, the birth of culture, is 96.
That's right.
1996, and this piece was hired by an architect that was a female student I had that admired my work a lot, and she was doing some renovations in the buildings of Congress, of Guatemalan Congress, and it was also a low-budget project. The female body of Sophie is done in fiberglass, and the base is not fiberglass. Yes, wow. Fiberglass and powder marble, resin and marble powder, calcium carbonate, and it's done in a very specialized and
why these unusual materials?
Low budget materials, and but it was part of my marketing plan. I always charged, Jonathan, and in this piece I had the opportunity to charge a higher value than my Prometheus, but it still was very low. It still was very low, and I had already my 3 kids that I had to feed. But that's why I had my art school, you know.
So you were also teaching, right?
Yes, I was also teaching, and that helped me out. And I did some architectural renovations, and I did this, and I did that.
You were a very busy guy.
I have always worked from 5 in the morning to almost 10 o'clock. So now I already learned to back up a little bit, enjoy more my family and life. But there were Sophie.
Sophie. Walk us through here. What do we have? So there's the book. The book, I would say, assume knowledge, and it's interesting her expression. She points up, not to the book. So what do you mean by that?
Okay, first of all, there you have in the base a bunch of books that are moving like in a spiral. way, because if you remember when you were a kid and you read your first book and then you read your second important and your third important, you are always like, it helps you to vary and change a little bit your view of life. So after you have read all philosophy and all psychology and a lot of general knowledge and science and mathematics, and you are changing and enriching your view of and your quantity of knowledge, and you are getting closer to be a wise individual. And there is a moment, this aha moment, in in philosophy, when you find out that you have acquired enough knowledge to say, okay, I know now. I must keep on studying, of course, but I know now. And then she's in that aha moment of being proud of acquiring that knowledge, and establishing she values, she deserves that knowledge. So it's Sophie. It's the definition is love of knowledge, but when you are loving that knowledge and you acquire that wisdom, then that's when you are able to be a high cultivated and civilized individual.
Wow, that's very beautiful, very, very beautiful. And I love how it ties also to objectivism. In the peak of, I remember he said that knowledge is spiral. Did you remember that in one of the, I don't remember which course, but
no, I didn't remember. That's a beautiful
because you learn something, it also affects how you understood something else, and you go back to that thing, and then that pushes you forward. There's a spiraling of knowledge, and there's a literal spiral of knowledge here. So I think it also ties quite.
Yes, and actually, she's not looking at the sky. It doesn't have any mystical connotation. The hand up. It's only like a triumphal position.
I see.
To be triumphant, you don't have to associate it only with the sky, or
of course. And there was another thing I noticed about her actually.
She's naked. She's naked.
Yes.
And then that's a symbolism, a symbolic picture of seeking for truth. Being honest, being transparent. Honesty with oneself is one of the most important virtues we have to practice in order to acquire one of the four cardinal virtues of the Greeks, that I would say is like the main motor, that is justice.
I love
to
that.
know where you are standing.
I love that. And the other thing I wanted to say is that you capture the climax moment. There's in the other sculpture as well, and I think this is a characteristic of romantic art. It's about the climax. It's the moment of, for example, Jacques-Louis David. He would capture the moment after the climax. If you recall the death of Mara, for example, it doesn't show you the stabbing. He shows you the quiet death. So, whereas Romanticism, that went against the neoclassical view, it was about the peak moment, the moment of climax, the most exciting part, the most emotionally intense part. So would you say this is something you aspire to achieve with your art as well?
Well, I think that's a very intelligent thought you're saying. Yes, for instance, one of the most inspiring creative features of Michelangelo for me was putting and symbolizing David before the battle. You know, no, not after the battle. So I don't know if it's only a romantic figure, or if you can also associate it with thinking that you are being controlled by destiny. That is one of the romantic features that you can also associate with some philosophic representations in the Greek art, sculpture and murals. And so I think it's more interesting. It's more, you have a more marvelous and inspiring moment if you are before the battle. If you, because Michelangelo was the first artist in the history of art, the first and I think the only one that put David before winning the battle. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not exclusively that, but definitely I would say a characteristic. Let's see another sculpture. So we are with the archer.
Actually, its name is not the archer; it's purpose.
Purpose.
The body. Yes. Purpose, comma, or the archer, because it's not symbolizing a sportsman. The sport of the archery, but is symbolizing the value, the pursuit of your highest and most important values. So then he's a naked individual that is standing very focused and looking at his aim. And this aim that is a Diana, a mirror, but it's a transparent mirror at the same time. You cannot see it in this picture, but it is like that in reality. And then you can see through the mirror, but you can also see that you are reflecting on it. So this is my most egoistic and self-interest symbolic sculpture I did, because you are aiming at yourself, and at the same time you are aiming at the future. Your values are in the future. You have to acquire them. You have to have the vision. You have to use your reason, your mind to define what are going to be these values. And for that you need honesty. You need wisdom. You need the pursuit of truth. This is purpose, the archer. Wow. I have it in a very big monument. That's why I have to. I sent you 2 dates. I won a competition to participate with this purpose archer that I did in 2000 in the Australian Olympics, Sydney Olympics, in this art concourse, competition. And afterwards, I was hired because my patron wanted like a remake and done it very big, huge. So I did a remake in 2007. I did a remake, and it was inaugurated in 2011, more or less. Purpose the archer, 3 meters 25 centimeters high from the foot to the head.
Oh, it's huge.
So the whole monument on a marble base is like almost 6 meters high.
Wow. That must be quite a striking sight to behold.
It's inspiring. It's inspiring, you know. It inspires all young people, you know, pursuing pursuing happiness, pursuing goals.
It's unbelievable, yeah. Walter. It's
thank you.
The anatomy. It's so masterful.
It took me 1 whole year to be executed. You know,
yeah, and you can see the progress you've made with the materials you've used. Now you're doing a proper bronze that also tells that you've managed to become quite successful at this stage, I would say.
It was a beautiful, orderly battle, very well thought, but my competence, my I don't know how do you say it in English perfectly. The people, the individuals with which I was competing, you know, my adversaries weren't actually sculptors. My main adversary was irrationality. My main adversary was the subjectivist view of reality and people thinking and believing that your senses deceive you. That was my main adversary, and that's why I prepared myself the best I could in philosophy, because at last that's my main tool of competing, you know. I prepare myself a lot better than my patrons in that sense, and with all the other individuals that have like power in the branches and in the context and in the atmosphere of art that has a power of decision. So I am well prepared to convince my patrons that this is the right idea, the right art for their business, for their main building, for their living room, for their, you know, for the right and the moral reasons that we should defend.
Wow, this is so beautiful, Walter. This is so inspiring. I'm so glad we're doing this this interview. I think this message is one that everybody needs to hear, no matter what he's doing, and especially for artists, I would say, still, but absolutely for everybody.
I'm very thankful to you of being interested in me sharing it with you and your public, Jonathan. I'm really.
I hope a lot of people will see it as well. I think everyone needs to see it. And thank you. And I would say I wanted to ask you where is this exhibited, the Purpose, the Archer?
Well, I have one Purpose, the Archer, in my workshop, but it's a small one. I mean the prototype, it's 75 centimeters that I have it here, and the actual monument is 10 minutes from here by car. It's a new private city that is called Cayalá city, where we are going to see the next piece that is Don, the Giant of Cayalá. There is the Archer, and there is Don, the Giant of Cayalá, and there is another piece of mine, Curiosity, the Fountain of All Virtues, that are 3 kids. So, I mean, in a radius of 2 or 3 kilometers, you can see more or less 30 of my monuments.
Number one reason to go to Guatemala.
Oh, I would love you to come here. I would take you to the UFM University, and I would introduce you to a lot of beautiful, intelligent people, you know, here defending liberty, defending individual rights.
I love that. I'm already getting my plane ticket. That's amazing.
That
so
would be great.
Let's see the giant. Here's the giant. Of course.
Yeah. Well, this is Don, the Giant of Cayalá, and this is actually maybe one of my most important and successful monuments in Guatemala, maybe one of the most successful monuments in Latin America. And
successful monument. What do you mean? What do you mean by successful monument?
Well, this is a monument that an average of 5,000 people sees daily.
Wow.
And it's one of the most photographed sculptures and memorials in Latin America. I mean, in the media, it's usually it's a main point for the photograph, and almost all tourism that comes into Guatemala, one of the must points that they are taken to is Cayalá City. And of course, if they go to Cayalá City, they have to take the picture with Don, the giant of Cayalá. It's very successful. It's very successful.
That's
and
amazing.
That was one of the main purposes, to be extremely successful for the business, for this architectural development, that it's a small city where you can live, you can work. It's a great investment. One of the most productive families in Guatemala, that is in the sugarcane business, went into the construction development and did this great urbanist project that it has 3 of my monuments.
Wow.
And this is part of another monument that is 50 meters away, that are 3 kids, that is called Curiosity Fountain of All Virtues. This is a memorial dedicated for young individuals, for kids, families, grandparents, because it represents the pursuit of happiness. That the pursuit of happiness, it's the most important value that you can have. There you see that in its right hand, it has a key. It has a huge key. And this giant is protecting, he has a coffer, he has a box that is hidden under the ground, a treasure, and then the kids have to come and look, where is the treasure? I wrote a short story for kids justifying creatively what I was representing. And then the story tells that these kids have to come and tickle the giant, so they can open the treasure, find the treasure, and with this key. And what's the key? It opens the treasure, that it has the main value, that is, look and aim to your goals. That's the secret of happiness, Pursue your goals, your dreams, reach your dreams, acquire, and be happy.
That's amazing.
That's the secret of happiness in life,
That's incredible. That's incredible. Did you, like, you saying it's visited by so many people, like, how does it feel for you as the creator? Let's say you go there and you happen to eavesdrop a conversation of somebody standing in front of your sculpture, and I guess you might have done that at some point to hear what they're saying. I would be very curious.
I have pictures with Tal Tesfani and Yaron Brook here in front of the giant of Cayalá.
And how does it make you feel having people being consumed in your art, being affected by it? How does it make you as an artist? Would you say it's one of the things you are working towards as a great reward for your work, or it's more of a secondary thing? How do you see that?
Look, it's beautiful. I feel myself successful, happy. I am proud of myself. But I had to invest so much energy, so much work, and I have my processes, my marketing, sales processes, my classes, I teach also art theory, philosophy in art. So it's already like part of the whole structure. Of course, when I bring here friends and new clients and patrons, and I will take you there, and we come there and we take a cup of wine in front, then I have like a very profound happiness and pride. But I try to maintain it in the right proportion, and I don't make a whole theater out of it, because there's always a plan, and it's like already a loose happiness, a loose sense of pride. I am 59 years old, so all my marketing plan and my successful career, it's like taking a real form already.
Quite,
and I have
quite a form, yes.
yes,
Absolutely,
and
yeah, absolutely.
when I go to the Francisco Marroquin University, there is a huge monument there that's a very important monument. I didn't send you the pictures, but of course, please, you have gone already in my webpage, walterpeter.com, and there's Atlas Libertas. That's a very important memorial. It's a 5-meter high sculpture. That was the memorial. That may be one of the most important memorials I've done, that I am mostly in love with, because that was the reason why how I could meet Yaron Brook and Tal Tesfani and a lot of objectivist famous figures, Maria Marti, so UFM, my university, my alma mater, opened me so many doors, in the intellectual realm and international realm, that's a piece that I would love. I would have to take you. Atlas Libertas. That was
I have to come.
Of my most important atlases, representing Atlas Shrugged, the heroes of Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, that's a magnificent sculpture, and of course we'll have the link in the description for your website, so people who are here watching or listening can check out your magnificent work and possibly commission work from you. Right? You do commissions, of course. So there's information there for how people can get in touch with you if they want to
I
have.
am constantly doing commissions. Now I have a work in progress for new important memorials, and I am constantly in commissions. So, and that's also a beautiful theme we could touch, and I just say it very briefly. My creative process, I was inspired philosophically, aesthetically, and even in the sales manner to do it as in the Renaissance, working by commission. That means that I don't sell the end product first, but the main product are the values and philosophy of my patron, and of course, ideally, if I can identify with them, what happens in 99% of the cases. So I start selling an idea, a philosophy, a sense of life, and then I draw, and then I create the prototype, and then the patron says, "Oh, that's incredible, that I love it. This I don't like so much, so that and that." And then comes the execution of the product. All that can take very long. Don, the giant of Cayalá, took me 3 1.2 years
Wow.
to be executed. Is chiseled in marble block, Guatemalan marble block. And I had
That's quite a big block. Wow.
Yes, I had 7 young students I had to prepare to help me out. I hired them, and they helped me out to execute it, just like in the Renaissance.
Wow, wow. And by
I
the way,
cannot do something like that by myself.
yeah, it's huge. I mean, and by the way, I see how Moses is your favorite. When this was some of your work, I can see you're drawn to these larger than life figures, and I love that. It's very beautiful. And by the way, I wanted to ask you. So below the grass, he is complete. It's like. Or is it like how does it work? How did you even?
I love that question. That is the question that all kids do.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
And also grown-ups. And then
and what is the answer?
What do you think, Jonathan?
I think it's there. I think if we dig the grass, we see the full figure. No.
Let's leave it there. And when we are with a cup of wine, celebrating knowing you in person in front of the memorial, I will tell you the truth. Let's leave the fantasy to all the individuals to enjoy them as they want to look at it.
I love that.
You permit.
No, that's perfect. Let's keep the suspense going. I love that. Okay, do we have one last one that we haven't shown? This is one of your atlases. Am I wrong?
This is one of my most important sculptures. I don't want never publicly to say which is the sculpture I like the most. That's why I always say I'm in love with my Prometheus, my first big monument with all its mistakes it has. But Atlas, Pillar of the World, what this was, Don the Giant of Cayalá was inaugurated in 2014. And Atlas, Pillar of the World was inaugurated in 2021.
Oh, it's quite recent.
In the middle of pandemic,
Wow.
in the middle of the pandemic. So Atlas Pillar of the World is very important for me because it was actually what I would think and, like in a way, an improvement of Atlas Libertas of the UFM. There I had the opportunity to do a high relief. Here I had the opportunity to do a freestanding sculpture. And to my patron, he's the owner of this building that is dedicated to entrepreneurs, enterprises, developers. HQ Fontavela is the name, and the owner, the CEO of all this construction branch, I had the opportunity to give him as a present an Atlas Shrugged book, and he was in love with it. And then he bought the idea that I convinced him to create an atlas to represent all the heroes, the mothers of the world that are the entrepreneurs in every country that they have the opportunity to create value and produce. And he was in love with the piece, and it has been extremely successful. It's big. If I am standing up beside him, I am seeing him to his, I am the exact size from foot to head. is 1 meter 80, 6 feet high.
Oh.
So the whole sculpture is 3 meters 50. If he standed up, he would measure 2 meters 50.
Wow.
You know, so he's a giant, and he's kneeling on top of Jupiter because he's abstracting. It's the first time. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of representations where Atlas is holding the Earth, because planet Earth, because normally in art history, in art mythology, with the Greeks, Atlas was holding the vault of the universe. That's the exact representation, the vault of the universe. And he was standing on Earth. And in this is Atlas holding the Earth, and he's symbolizing the force of gravity. And Jupiter is just beside us, so he's standing in the bigger planet, holding the Earth, representing the entrepreneurs, the tycoons, the heroes of the Atlas Shrugged novel. And of course, all the heroes, the actual heroes, the real heroes in Guatemala, moving this motor of prosperity, of productivity, that are all the intelligent entrepreneurs that take risks and struggle so much, having success and failing a lot of times. So it is actually representing what it takes. There is a thought of Ayn Rand in Atlas Shrugged, where it says, I cannot paraphrase it, but what would you tell Atlas if you were asked what wanted you to tell him if you saw all his perspiring blood coming on his chest? I don't know if you remember more or less. I will send
That part I don't remember, no.
And then it's that exact paragraph that is representing from Atlas Shrugged, you know, this struggle of...
That's why there's some water spilling on his hand. That's why there's a bit of a blue there.
Well, actually, it's like a metamorphosis, you know. It's him becoming the Earth, being the mother of humanity, you know, planet Earth. He's the one that is in charge. Actually, he's struggling, but if you see in his expression, in his facial expression, it's not difficult.
Yeah.
It's not difficult because reason is helping him out, and the free hand, it's only like a position of harmony and you know, like just compensating of the movement, representing, symbolizing him as the force of gravity. So yeah, this is Atlas, pillar of the world.
Pillar of the world, yeah, absolutely striking. You know what I noticed with your bronze is how shiny it is, and I think it strikes me as unusually shiny because most of bronze I'm seeing is very old sculptures, right? That's how
Yes.
they were when they were new. They looked more like yours, right?
Maybe not all the waxes are aimed to get it shinier. You can also see some beautiful sculptures that are in the museums that shine, because if you have a sculpture in an inside atmosphere, then it's not water and sun can be very harmful for the oxidation of bronze. and then you easily lose the shiny part that is actually wax. You put some wax and you just polish it, and so in an inside is easier to have a better maintenance for your
I
sculpture.
see. So it gets serviced. The
Yeah,
sculpture.
of course,
Yeah.
Atlas Pillar of the World is only 4 years old, so it's pretty young.
Yeah, no, it's just absolutely striking. The veins, the way the veins are, you feel the weight of the earth in his arm. How you see the veins and the determination on his eyes. I wish we had a zoom in on his eyes. I'm curious about that look. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think on your website there are photos of this sculpture as well. Right?
And there are more, there are different angles, and different photographs. At least there are 4 or 5 for each memorial. And there you can check also like a lot other of my sculptures and monuments. Yeah.
Magnificent. I'm sure the viewers will be keen to go do that right after this
I
interview.
hope so.
There's a lot of very good stuff there. We'll put the link in the description, of course. Wow, Walter Peter, that was quite a journey. I feel like I also have the images. We've been in Switzerland, Guatemala now. Like this has been a world encompassing journey. We've been to the university. I love that. It's very inspiring, and I'm very glad we have done this interview. And I would like to close with a nice, inspiring call to action for our viewers. Besides going to your website, what would you say? What is your message to our viewers?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Pursuit your goal with the highest conviction and happiness you can practice. I mean the traveling, enjoying, the way, and not living only for the final moment, for the goal and the value to be acquired, but you have to enjoy, I mean, the most you can, the way, the medium, with the highest conviction and enjoying it, to be happy. That's the most important thing. Doesn't matter what you do, but enjoy it. Enjoy the life. Enjoy the journey. Enjoying the journey is the most important part of life. Maybe you can acquire more, maybe you can acquire less, but enjoying the journey. That's what I would suggest. And study philosophy and study sales. Yeah,
I love
really,
that.
I feel very honored, Jonathan, and proud of knowing you, getting to meet you and know you. I'm thankful to Gabriel Leonardo
Yes,
for
absolutely.
introducing us, and I hope that we keep in touch.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you very much for the interview. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much, Walter Peter. And thank you for the viewers and the supporters of Philosophy I Needed to make it possible for me to do these videos and my writing. Subscribe, share, let us know in the comments what did you think. Go to Walter Peter's website and enjoy life, as you said so beautifully. Go and pursue life, pursue beauty. I would also say
And
relentlessly.
be the best you can do, because that is the best sales tool there is. Maximum excellence possible.
That then
Uh,
it sells itself. If it's the best, it sells
sells
itself.
itself.
Yeah,
Excellence sells itself. Yeah.
beautiful. Okay, so thank you very much, and see you in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.